evening. Thank you. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting of July 21st. The first item on the agenda is probably why most of you are here this evening, and it's another board meeting where we're discussing the Springdale Avenue property. Can you hear me? No. I'm not sure this will help all that much.
Well, they're open seats.
Yeah, if anybody wants to move forward. I will try. So tonight, based on the timeline that we've discussed for 110 or 115 days now, the right of first refusal for the 46 Springdale property has to be exercised within 120 days of our notice, which we received in early April. So this is the board meeting where the Board of Selectmen will decide on whether to exercise the town's right of first refusal or to pass on the town's right of first refusal. Over the last several meetings, we've had great attendance. We've had committee reports by Concom and Board of Health and Open Space and Planning Board on their view of the issues. Once again, I'd like to thank all those committees for their diligence and timeliness and conversations amongst the various committees that have helped an awful lot. So tonight we have a couple of things to update you on, and then we'll have a discussion. We'll open it up to some questions, and then the board will take a vote. So I'll turn this over to our Springdale chief here, Mr. Dawley.
Thank you, Carol. Good evening. There isn't a lot to report on that has happened in the last 2 weeks other than what the Board of Selectmen has done and Town Council has done in response to a lawsuit filed against the Board of Selectmen stopping any decisions we have made in future actions as it pertains to 46 Springdale Ave. Town Council filed a motion to dismiss on July 14th, in effect citing the complaint that has no merit. It's a nuisance. It's a waste of everyone's time and money at this time. But that's really the only thing we have to update the town on at this time. We'll file a motion to dismiss, and we will vigorously defend everything we have done to this date. But that's it right now, Carol. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Since the last meeting where the committees reported, at that time there was still some question about access, and Concom and the Planning Board still had a little work to do together to explore how access to the back 24 acreage might be obtained given the frontage on Springdale and the wetlands configuration that had been delineated. And Candace, would you like to update us on the last Concom meeting? Thank you.
Right. Shall I turn? And
Please.
Okay, great. Candace, discuss the three proposed maps that were put forward by Planning Board that we were talking about at the last meeting. Map number 3 contained the loop road, and that's the very most problematic for all of us at Conservation Commission. The reason is because in any development, the setbacks off the resource areas of wetlands on either side are doubled, and there is only a 170-foot opening between the wetlands in the front of 46 Springdale, and we would require, by Dover bylaw, we would require 80 feet, and then the expanse of the road, then whatever the Planning Board's minimum distance is between roads, then again another 22 feet for the road, and another 80 feet. Clearly.
Excuse me, Candace. I think we've been motioned if you could use the microphone. That would help for the recording.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, figure out what Rick was doing back there.
Great. Does that better?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So to be very clear, there is not enough space between the wetlands in the opening to put in a loop road. If in fact we were to deny that possibility, this kicks a couple of things into play. Number one, it's quite possible that our denial would be appealed to the state, And the state has different requirements. They don't have a Dover bylaw. What the state does, the state also is not invested in the buffer zone. And so with a little bit of tweaking on map number 3, moving those 2 roads out a bit and skirting right alongside the 2 wetlands, it is conceivable that the state might find a way to overturn our denial. But that's debatable. There's another complication about map 3, and I wanted to say, you know, we take our marching orders from the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, but in addition, all of you have given us the power and asked us to protect Dover's resources with the Dover bylaw. And the Dover bylaw is a higher standard than the state standard. And so in the Dover bylaw, there is the possibility that we can, as Concom, exercise a waiver. In other words, if the applicant is capable of demonstrating with an actual plan in front of us that this creates an undue hardship that there is no other way around, Concom can exercise a waiver and decide to go ahead under the circumstances and pass the plan. But it's a very, very tricky thing, and I wouldn't be able to say to you how I would expect the commission to vote. I have no idea. We were talking theoretically, we were looking at the maps, we were not actually looking at a plan before us. We didn't have anyone pleading the case, and so it's very hard to say how Concom would vote on map 3. What is interesting is that for there to be a single road in for back access of that land, the loop road has to be feasible and approvable. So again, if we were to talk about the other 2 maps, map number 4, which was more of the large lot development map with a single road in, we would still have to probably exercise a waiver, but it would not be a very big waiver because it would be a single road. So you'd look at the 80 feet, and the breadth of the road, you see, and we have 170 feet there, so we're talking about 182 feet, something like that. It's not a huge waiver. But it's impossible to know without having been presented with a plan exactly how the commission would vote. It's also impossible to know what the state might do if in fact we denied. The third map is the more, shall I say, pie in the sky map. It's the cluster housing is not the right term, but it was the map that asked for a single road and then several buildings of closely fitted residences. And the advantage to that, even though the town has not taken a position on in favor of that, and that would require, I believe, a town vote on that. But the advantage is, and why Concom tends to love that plan, is that it would be the one to safeguard the most of the beautiful fields. And since that's really our task, was to look at this land from its conservation value, this was a little bit of a stretch for us to look at, well, and how would we approve to develop it? Because that's really not the business that we're in. Are there any questions? Okay.
Thank you very much. Mark, would you just like to briefly state the planning board's position given Concom's latest memo?
Sure. Hi, Mark Sarro from the Planning Board. We reviewed the Concom's latest memo, which was submitted subsequent to the memo that we had provided to the Board of Selectmen earlier on, where the different maps were laid out. Upon looking at the memo, the board is essentially in full agreement with everything that's in the Concom's memo with regards to its assessment about the access to the lot and the dimensionality of the loop road and all of the rest. It's true what Candace said, that the loop road would have to be feasible for the planning board to even entertain the idea of any other type of waiver under the zoning bylaw of the town. For example, the zoning bylaw prohibits dead-end streets or cul-de-sacs. And so frequently, if the planning board sees a benefit to the town of entertaining the notion of a cul-de-sac or dead-end road instead of a loop road that's otherwise feasible, we will discuss that at planning board, and such a waiver could be granted. The planning board wouldn't even consider that unless we knew from the Concom that that loop road would be feasible. And so, given what the Concom has said in its memo, we did also agree that, recognizing that the town's bylaw in that regard is a higher standard than state regulation, that it's, and given the size of this parcel and the amount of the encroachment of that loop road in the buffer zone there along the frontage on Springdale, it may be likely that ultimately, the loop road ultimately would be viewed as feasible. That's not our call, that's the Concom's call in the end. If that were the case, then the plan that you've all seen, I'm sure, with showing the loop road and 10 buildable lots, potentially up to 10, is still what the planning board would see as what you could draw on paper for that lot. Whether or not you ultimately would get 10 building lots out of that depends on a lot of other things. It depends in part on Concom wetlands determination. It depends on what the Board of Health determines with regard to the water situation on the properties. And it also, if ultimately anyone were to request a waiver from the planning board of that loop road, for example, for a cul-de-sac, chances are that the planning board would not like to approve all of those lots that are possible, the maximum number of buildable lots. We would instead typically seek some benefit to the town in the form of open space on the lot, and frequently that comes at the cost of density. So we typically see fewer buildable lots or building lots result with more open space. In the end, at the end of the day, under conventional zoning, we see something in the neighborhood of 7 to the maximum of 10, likely not the 10 though with a cul-de-sac if planning board were to grant a waiver. Just one other quick comment. There are two other ways, of course, that under conventional zoning, the lot, well, one way under conventional, one alternative that the lot could be developed, one of which is the A&R process. It just wasn't mentioned earlier, so it's worth mentioning again, that there's a process under which the planning board doesn't actually have to approve the subdivision of a parcel into separate lots, and that could be done here on this lot. It has enough frontage. It's in the 1 acre district. It has enough frontage to support 2 lots. If that were to happen, each lot could only support 1 house on a lot, and then would have, so the second lot wouldn't necessarily have to have any house on it at all. It could be entirely open space. It could have at most 1 house on it. That wouldn't require the approval of the planning board, but the planning board would be asked to endorse such a plan. It would come in. It's a very quick process, and it's routine, happens all the time. The other alternative that was mentioned was some sort of an open space zoning, which was on one of the maps attached to the Concom memo. That's something that is probably familiar to everyone from a few years back. The planning board did propose a bylaw that would maintain the maximum number of buildable lots for any large parcel such as this, but in exchange for, as it was proposed at the time, 50% of the area of the land being preserved as open space. The planning board would allow for a waiver of the dimensional restrictions on the lot under conventional zoning. So that's what would allow for, in the 1 acre zone, as this parcel is, the clustering of lots, the same number of lots that one might get with, for example, a cul-de-sac there, perhaps, but on lots that may be smaller than 1 acre each, lots that wouldn't be subject to the other dimensional requirements of our zoning bylaw. And the planning board hasn't also, again, taken any formal action on this. It's been an informal discussion. It's subject to the, again, feasibility of that loop road altogether. But I think the consensus of the board is that, as the Concom's consensus was in its memo, I think, that if it were possible, the open space design that preserves the most land on the parcel would be, in the view of the planning board, I think, the most attractive proposal if this land were to be further developed at all. Under our current zoning, it's not an option. Whether it would become an option could be the subject of future discussion. But I think that's the sense of the planning board of the best way forward if this were to be developed further at all.
Thank you very much, Mark. Are there any questions for Mark, or planning board issues? Okay, thanks, Mark. So before we get into a discussion, I just wanted to open up to any other general questions that anybody might have relative to our right of first refusal. Guess all those meetings have been successful. Okay. Mr. Dolly?
Well, before I make a motion, I would like to thank Concom and Planning Board in open space, Concom and Planning Board in particular, because what I've seen in the last couple of months is a willingness to open your eyes a little greater I mean, 6 months ago, I don't think Concom would have entertained the idea of coming up with hypothetical solutions to a problem. And that's the way they worked. And that works fine, but in this particular situation where the center of town was going to be so dramatically altered if something happens, they were willing to work with the Board of Selectmen, work with Planning Board, and to develop, okay, what's the best use, open their eyes. And I thank you guys very much. Candace, thank you very much for that. Mark, thank you. Open space, I see Justine, I see
Amy?
Amy, thank you very much. That being said, we have had some, Carol, forgive me if I get the numbers wrong, some 2,000 views on the webpage on the town, on this particular matter, which is, I would have lost a lot of money if I was a betting person in this one. Oh, thank you. So an awful lot of people are interested, and whether they agree with whether to purchase or not, everyone is getting involved, and we appreciate that more than we can talk to. I will get off my soapbox now, and I will make a motion to exercise the right to purchase 46 Springdale Avenue pursuant to Mass General Law 61A.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, I'd like to open it up for a little bit more discussion. Thank you for the motion. You know, on a personal basis, I have always philosophically felt that that as a proponent of open space, that this was an important piece of parcel for many reasons, most of which you've heard over the last 4 or 5 selectmen's meetings on this issue. I'm pleased that Concom and Planning Board have looked at this in a broader way and feel more confident that should the town acquire the property, that we have some options that we could study, which is the board's commitment, that if the town voted to a town meeting and a town election to acquire the property, that we would put together a broad-based study committee to look at all the possible uses of this property. But knowing that there's some flexibility within constraints relative to access to the back property opens up even more possibilities for the town to come up with mixed-use ways of dealing with the entire acreage. So I, too, want to thank Concom and Planning Board for that. Robin?
I would like to echo a little bit of Jim's comments, and to add in there, I'd also like to thank the Board of Health for looking at these. Maybe I better not talk.
Very profound. Should I try again? Maybe feedback. Let's give it a try. Nope. Speak loud.
Project. I'll give it a shot. So I would like to thank the Planning Board as well. I think it was difficult for the Planning Board, for the Board of Health, being scientists, to also look at this theoretically, and I really appreciate all of their help. On a personal note, I too agree with Carol's remarks regarding the I don't know what word I'm looking for, but regarding what 46 Springdale Ave has to happen, has to offer to the town. I appreciate all the boards and committees bringing their perspective. I think this has been a wonderful exercise for all of us, working together, listening to very different opinions, and respecting those. So I would like to thank everybody for that.
Jim, anything else?
Yes, one final. Mr. Snyder, who's the owner of the property, is in the audience this evening, and I would like to thank you for coordinating all the different specialties, professionals we had going through there. So thank you for your cooperation in that.
Okay, so that being said, we have a motion to exercise our right of first refusal on 46 Springdale pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 61A. In our packet, we have a notice of exercise, which says, "The Town of Dover, a municipal corporation having a mailing address of Dover Townhouse 5, Springdale Avenue, Dover, Massachusetts, in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 61A, Section 14, hereby gives notice of its election to exercise its right of first refusal on that certain property owned by James F. Snyder," blah, 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 blah. That's basically the motion. So, having read that, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. So the Town of Dover Board of Selectmen have voted unanimously to exercise the town's right of first refusal. Yep. Mr. Ramsey, I need to do the next one as well? Okay. So this is I move that we approve the record of vote of the Dover Board of Selectmen dated July 21st, 2014, which is in our package. And, Ms. Dolly, perhaps you can explain this one to us. Mr. Ramsey.
Thank you.
Under the provisions of Chapter 30B, real property acquisitions have to go through a competitive process unless there's a unique determination by the Board of Selectmen that this constitutes a unique real property acquisition. So the intent here is for the board to so vote.
Thank you. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. So bear with me for a moment while I get out the timeline and go through some of our next steps. The next step is for the town of Dover to enter into a purchase and sale agreement with Mr. Snyder. By Mass General Law, that purchase and sale agreement needs to have the same economic value as the purchase and sale agreement that he currently holds with Northland Development. So that being said, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the draft P&S that we have in our package, and to authorize me as chair of the board to work with town council on developing and executing a final purchase and sale agreement. I should note that, as we've explained before, any purchase and sale agreement would be contingent upon the town approving the purchase of the property at town meeting on September 15th, and approving the debt to fund the purchase at our special town meeting, which would be held concurrently on November 4th, the election day.
It wouldn't be a special town meeting, it's general election, it would be a ballot question.
Oh, it will be a ballot question, sorry, right. On November 4th. So I make that motion. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. So in order to schedule the special town meeting, we need to vote on convening a special town meeting. So I'd like to make a motion to convene a special town meeting for 7 PM on Monday, September 15th. I believe it's a Monday. Monday, September 15th, for the purpose of voting to acquire the 46 Springdale property. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We also need to vote to open the warrant for the special town meeting. And we would open the warrant, and I make a motion to open the warrant tonight with a close date of August 6th.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So at our August 6th Selectmen's meeting, we will close and sign the warrant for the special town meeting on September 15th. We are then planning on having, we will then do our mailings in August of the warrant material. And on September 3rd, which is a Wednesday, we will have a public discussion of the issue. I imagine it will take the format of our last Selectmen's meeting, where we had all the committees come in and present. It'll be an educational session for those who didn't make or haven't seen the replay, and to get any more questions from the audience prior to the town meeting. The special town meeting, again, on September 15th, will require a 2/3 vote, and then the debt on the 11/4 meeting will be a majority vote. Do I have any questions on the calendar? We'll get all this onto, I think it's already on the website, we'll make sure that it's highlighted. Okay, I think that's it relative to Springdale. Anything else? Did we handle all the business? Last chance for any questions from citizens of Dover
On Springdale.
on Springdale. Okay, well, once again, Jim mentioned that over 2,200 hits on the webpage. As astounding as that number is, to me, the even more astounding number is that's over 1,100 unique people checking out the website, which would be close to about 1/3 of our electric, which is absolutely amazing. So for those of you who still want to get updated and have until September 15th or haven't had a chance, all the material is on the webpage, on the doverma.org website. Just click on the homepage link, and there's a whole bunch of FAQs there. We've been trying to keep those up to date. If any of you feel that there are some questions and/or answers that aren't on the FAQs, please let us know, and we'll be glad to add them to the webpage. And I want to thank all the citizens who have gone through a series of 4 or 5 meetings for attending these sessions, and the warrant committee for being here tonight. So we will move on to the next agenda, but I think I'll wait and let most of you leave, probably. So we're still in the middle of a selectmen's meeting. I know everybody likes to chat, and I'd appreciate it if you would do it outside. Thank you.
Use my microphone, maybe.
Okay, so we will proceed with our meeting. The next item on the agenda is filling the vacancy on the planning board due to the resignation of Greg Sullivan. Mark? Please, yep.
Do you want to use mine?
I'll try this one again. So yeah, thanks for having this on the agenda so quickly. The board received the resignation of now longtime member, really, Greg Sullivan, who's been a lifelong resident of Dover and still is, but has resigned his seat on the board because he's taken a job that now has him out of town most times during the week and makes it impossible for him to get back every other Monday night for a planning board meeting. And so Greg's seat has become vacant. We've talked as a board with folks about trying to fill the seat, and we have proposed Kate Bush as a replacement to fill that seat on the board. Kate, I think you all know Kate, but by means of general introduction, she's been a member of the Warrant Committee in the past and also the Capital Budget Committee recently, and has come to the Planning Board, spoken with us, and has expressed an interest in the position.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we've all had the honor and the privilege of working with Kate in our various Warrant Committee and Capital Budget Committee work over the years, so we know Kate well. And thank her for stepping up.
I would like to thank Greg for his many years of service. He was a valuable member of the planning board. And to reiterate what Mark, you just said, and Carol, I work alongside Kate in Warrant, so I think she'll be a great addition to the planning board.
Okay, so thank you, Greg, and we'll get out a letter to thank you as well. He will be missed, and that's a depth of experience that is hard to replace. So I make a motion to approve Kate Bush to fill Greg Sullivan's term on the planning board.
Second.
All in favor? Roll call vote. Mr. Dolly?
How long is this term last? Till the next election next year? Okay, thanks. I just needed clarity.
Ms. Hunter? Aye?
Aye. I've never done this before.
Oh, roll call.
So,
Yea or nay? And yes to me as well. So, thank you, Kate. Welcome to the planning board. Oh, and the planning board members. Aha. Okay, Mr. Faulkner. Mr. Sarro. Aye. Who else do we have here? Joan Darkety. Yes. Yes? Anybody else? No, that's it. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Which brings us to the next item, which is all the other appointments that we make this time of year. Mr. Darley, do you have some appointments?
yes, I have two. The first is the Town Report Committee. I'm very happy to report that, so to speak, that Kathy Weld would not like another 3-year term. She's been serving the Town Report Committee for the past 6 years, so she's going to a third term. So Kathy, thank you very much. So I would like to nominate her for that position.
Are you a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And continuing with people who want to continue serving the town, Maureen Dilge would like to be reappointed to another 3-year term on the Council on Aging.
Should have done the C before.
Good. So for Maureen, this would be her second term, so I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Maureen.
And that's it for me right now.
Okay, I have one, and that's on the Personnel Board. Mary Hornsby has agreed to re-up. She's been on the board since 2005. Very experienced. So I move we appoint Mary Hornsby to another 3-year term.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mary. Mr. Ramsey?
Madam Chairman, I have spoken with the police chief and would be happy to serve another year as the chief of communication.
Okay, it's a one-year term. I move we approve Chief Pete McGowan for a one-year term as Chief of Communication. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then all of the police officers listed on your spreadsheet. Beginning on page 10, and going to the next page. The chief is unanimously recommending reappointment of all of the people on this list.
Mr. Ramsey, may I ask a question about the special officers on this list? Has that changed at all recently?
We had a resignation about 2 weeks ago.
Which one was that?
It was John Sweeney. He's no longer on the list.
Oh, yeah, okay, I have him on my list. It's an old list. Thank you. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I've been over this too. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion that we appoint all the police officers as duly noted on our latest appointed elected master schedule.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else, Dave? No. Okay, and it continues, and once again, if anybody's out there and is interested in participating in town government, give us a call. Next item on the agenda is the renewal of the license agreement between the Town of Dover and Dover Automotive for use of a portion of Whiting Road. Greer?
Our own maintenance superintendent has spoken with Doug Wolf, who's the proprietor of Dover Automotive, and he's glad to agreement for another year of the same terms and conditions for $400 per month.
Any comments, Jim or Robin?
When you say same conditions, is that what I take it as, the same rent?
Not just that, but also the terms, in terms of what you can store there and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's a tenant as well.
Well, I do support that because it is a very effective business for a lot of the townspeople. He does a good job. He's a great communicator. I personally, well, my wife uses him. And I think he adds a great benefit. And for him to take that particular space over and where we don't have to maybe refurbish it for a new tenant or the like, I think it's a very positive thing that we re-up his license.
It continues to be pretty rough space.
I was trying to be nice.
Looks a little better on the outside, but the inside, you know.
It's for automotive use.
Yeah.
So do I have a motion to approve the license agreement as submitted in our package?
Yes, right here.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Just the chair. That's
Oh, that's my, oh, that's yours.
Take this.
Were you
Thank
practicing?
you. I was practicing. What's my name?
Great, thank you. Thank you, Graham.
The next item is the execution of the fiscal year 15 through 17 Dover Police Association Collective Bargaining Agreement. Mr. Dolly?
Thank you. On June 9th, the board executed the memorandum of understanding at that time, which was for the next 3 years for the police contract, union contract, excuse me. And at the time, and I'd like to reiterate my thanks to Chief McGowan, Mr. Ramsey, Officers Ryan Manise, Nicole Bratchett Heffernan, Dave Chasen, and John Cash, who we negotiated this contract with. They were very, very professional. It was a nice, smooth negotiation. So thank you, gentlemen, and Mrs. Heffernan, I should say. But to that point, it was a very fair contract in line with what the town has elected to pay non-union and other union people over the next 3 years. So thank you.
So with that, I'll accept the motion to approve the agreement between the Town of Dover and the Dover Police Association from July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All aboard.
And thank you, Mr. Dolly and Mr. Ramsey, once again, for your efforts on behalf of the Town of Dover as you negotiated this agreement.
Thank you. I'll have you know I did all the work, just so you know.
You can't let him get away with that.
The next item is to discuss the change of the Energy Coordinator's title. So we've had, in recent years, Erica Alert has been our Energy Coordinator. It's a title that just begins to reflect the services that she provides to the citizens of Dover. And she came in last fall and presented her approach, and she had flyers, and she's taken a very much more prominent role in making sure that citizens in need understand the services that she can provide. And energy assistance is just part of it. So we've been talking about changing that title to better reflect the scope of her responsibilities. And what we came up with was Financial and Energy Assistance Coordinator. And she would like us to consider the change of that title, and if the board so chooses to do that, we would then meet and talk about making sure that the website accurately reflects that title, and that the promotional material that she will send out every fall also reflects the reality of what she's been doing. And that's because traditionally, way back when, those citizens that had financial need tended to need help with heating and utility bills and so forth. Over the last 8 or 9 years, it sort of expanded to more financial assistance with help in finding general assistance through various state and county programs are available, a lot through South Middlesex Opportunity Council, SMOC. And that's why Erica had asked for this expansion in title.
Well, good. I can fully appreciate her desires and what she does. She does a great job. It's not part of the bylaws, this particular position. Do we have to do anything other than change a title, Dave?
I do not believe we
No.
do.
Okay, good. Well, I fully support this for clarity's purposes. So, good.
Yeah, and she works closely with Janet Claypool and Council on Aging, for that segment of the population, but there's certainly the broad segment of the population that uses her services. And she's been doing a wonderful, wonderful job.
Good. Okay.
I agree. I think the new title better reflects what she's doing.
In that case, I move to change the energy coordinator's title to financial and energy assistance coordinator.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Erica. We'll be in touch.
New business cards.
New business group. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the disclosure of financial interest by special municipal employee. Greer or Dave? You okay, Dave?
In order for an existing employee to be appointed as a call firefighter under the conflict of interest statute, two things have to happen. The fire chief has to indicate that he needs the body and that there are no other employees available who can do that work. And then the board has to approve, has to exempt his interest in a call fire position pursuant to the statute. So we have a letter from Fire Chief Hughes indicating his intention to appoint and to certify that the services to be provided cannot be performed by an employee of the fire department as part of their regular duties, and then a motion for the board of selectmen to exempt his interest from this provision.
Now, while I applaud anyone who's trying to do this, and especially Brad, thank you, I know this is probably the third or fourth conflict that we've had to approve over the last year or two.
Third exemption, yes.
Now, as this widens and you have more of these instances going forward, will that make your job as the manager of all, as the manager of their current employment during the day, more difficult? Or should-
That's an excellent question, Mr. Dolly. We have sat down with each employee who's expressed an interest and made it clear that absent extraordinary demand by the fire department, i.e. a full working fire, their day job comes first.
Okay, good, thank you. So you're well aware of the situation, so that's great, thank you.
And of course, the flip side advantage of this is that we have folks that are in town during the day available to meet the needs of the call fire department.
It's mutually beneficial.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So do I have a motion on this? Or do we have to vote on this? How do we?
We do have to move to exempt his.
Right. So in our package, we have a motion to approve pursuant to General Law, Chapter 2268A, Section 20F, the request of the fire chief to exempt Brad Crosby, interest in the coal fired position, blah, blah, blah. So, do I have a motion to accept this motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you, Brad. Next item is a vote to transfer the Dowd Family Gift Fund for baseball dugouts to the Dover-Sherburne Regional School Committee. Let's see. So, in recognition of the early passing of Mr. Dowd, the family donated and friends of Mr. Dowd donated funds to build dugouts to remember his love of baseball, a team that he was on in Dover. And the plan had been to build dugouts on the field behind the Carroll House.
Correct.
And several years ago now, as the funds were raised and it got more into a planning stage, it became apparent that there were some issues that the Dover Historical Society had relative to expanding the field behind the historic Carroll House and its impact on the ambiance of that historical site, especially with the Fisher Barn that was put up there as well. So we worked with the Dover Historical Society, with Park and Rec. We flagged, we looked at various outlines of possible fields and expansion and trees and so forth and so on. And the decision was made jointly by the Dowd family and the Park and Rec Commission to change their plans, and rather than have the dugouts at the field behind Carroll House, that the dugouts would be built at Dover-Sherburne High School. So the funds, of course, had been donated to the town of Dover to this particular gift fund. The regional school committee is its own legal entity. So the Regional School Committee did vote at their June 10th meeting to accept the gift, which is $16,522. So the Dover Board of Selectmen needs to vote to transfer the gift to the Regional School Committee.
If I may,
Absolutely.
I would like to thank the Dowd family for being so flexible in this matter. As Carol said, we worked side by side, Carol and I, with Park and Rec in the Dover Historical for a couple of years. Spent a lot of time in this, trying to mediate the situation where keeping the Dowd family happy, where they tried to memorialize their son with a physical asset given to the town. That didn't work. So I appreciate the Dowd family for being so flexible. And thank you, the regional school campus for taking on this situation and getting everyone happy at the end of the day also.
So I move that we vote to transfer $16,522. It's in the Matt Dowd Gift Fund from the town of Dover to the Regional School Committee for the purposes of building dugouts on the regional school campus.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Carol, just,
The next item is approval of the fiscal year 15 Park and Rec Department revolving fund. Came to our attention a couple years ago that the revolving fund for Park and Rec requires the approval on an annual basis of the Board of Selectmen. We met with Park and Rec earlier this year, and they have submitted a fiscal year 15 estimate of the use of their revolving fund, which is funded by various fees that they charge for their programs. We do have a couple of questions on it, I certainly do.
Yes.
And
I do too.
You know,
So-
our attention's been on Springdale Ave, quite honestly, for the last month. And I have a lot of notes on this, and where I was just given this evening, I'd like to refer back to those notes until the next meeting.
great,
That works.
so we'll just move this to our to our August 6th meeting.
Thank you.
Well, a sign of the economic recovery is a building boom in Dover, the results of which we discussed at our last meeting when we had to increase the revolving fund for the Board of Health, and we find ourselves in the same situation with the gas inspector and the wire inspector, where the fees that are being generated by all the building exceed the town meeting voted maximum for the revolving fund. So we have two votes for gas and plumbing. The current fiscal year 14 budget was $5,500 for gas and $22,000 for wiring. We're over both those amounts already in actual revenue for fiscal year 14. So we would like to increase the budgets to $8,200 for the gas inspector and $24,200 for the wiring inspector.
I have no questions or comments.
I have no questions or comments either.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And this will then need to be approved by the warrant committee. Special licenses. Looks like we have three. I'll read all three and then we can vote on them. September 27th at Elm Bank for a wedding. August 3rd at Elm Bank for a wedding. And August 15th at Elm Bank for a wedding. 'Tis the season. Do you have a motion to accept these three licenses?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adding approval of some minutes to the agenda. We have executive session meeting minutes of May 14th.
I have no comments on those.
I have no comments on the executive session meeting minutes.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And we have minutes of our Selectmen's meeting of June 9th.
I have no changes.
Neither do I.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would like to make a comment relative to an item that was discussed at the June 9th meeting. On June 9th, Sarah Molyneux, Amy and Kevin Wilcox, and Susan Barrett came in representing Friends of the Draper House to make a last-minute appeal to prevent the demolition of the oldest house in Dover in its original location. The house is 290 years old. Despite the amazing efforts and the generous offers over 7 years by Dover citizens, and another generous offer that was made the last several weeks by the Friends of the Draper House to cover all costs of demolition, removal of the house, and return of the land to an acceptable state, the owners chose to demolish the Draper House on Monday, July 14th. This was unnecessary. It was an incredibly unfortunate act that showed no regard for Dover's history and heritage. In trying to find anything positive about this outcome, I can only hope that it will result in Dover citizens stepping back and thinking about what it means to be a citizen of this great little town. Is it just paying real estate taxes? Or do we have an obligation to recognize Dover's past and be stewards of the best part of it as we live and work here to be part of its future? I'd also like to reiterate once again to all of you that the Springdale process is not over.
It's only begun.
It's only begun. We as selectmen will be spending the month of August putting together as much educational material as we can. We're often asked, what are we going to do? We have done what we have to do, which is to make a decision and do our due diligence to give you the information so the citizens of Dover can decide what you want to do. This is not a selectmen's issue at this point. This is a citizen's issue. I urge all of you to please spend the time to get updated on the information, to ask questions of us, of your friends and neighbors, and to come to the town meeting on September 15th, well-educated on the issue.
Well said.
Well said, Carol.
Anything else?
No.
I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Citizens,
Oh, sorry.
am I loud?
Absolutely.
I suspect you know what I'm going to
Justine.
say. Yeah, Justine Kent, Tam Haven Street. First of all, I do want to thank you three for all your years of service. When I look at, I know, but you guys have all been on the warrant.
There's feedback there. You might
What's
wanna-
that?
There's a little bit of feedback. You might
Oh,
want
you
to
don't want me
stand back a
to
little.
stand back further? At least
Yeah.
I don't have the drone sound that you had, Robin, right?
Right. I'm
Okay, you can.
special. I'm special.
You're special. Anyway, I do want to thank you because it's a lot of work, this job, and I get that, okay? And I have not had your job, but I do get how much work, so I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank you about Springdale, especially the process. You know, in the past, I've been pretty critical about not having a two-phase process, i.e. a town meeting vote followed by an election, and I think this is the model one should follow for important issues. And now we get to my level of concern. As you know, I sent an email to you all concerning my issues with fear of what's happening to the aquifer in the Charles River watershed. I'm speaking as an individual, but you also know I'm involved in a lot of environmental groups. And over the years, and I was appointed, by the way, by the Board of Selectmen in Dover to serve on the Medfield State Hospital Reuse Committee for about 4 or 5 years when that was being considered for a 18-hole golf course, as you may recall, over 440 units of housing. And during that process, an environmental group called Upper Charles Conservation Land Trust, actually, of which I am associated, hired a hydrologist to look at the water drawdowns in the aquifer. And the way I keep telling people is the aquifer is basically a huge underland lake that is in the Charles River, going all the way basically from South Natick all the way to Holliston and Hopkinton. And from this huge underground lake, there are thousands of wells that are like thousands of straws sipping up the water from the aquifer. And the problem is that we appear, and Charles River Watershed Association can give you a lot more technical information on this than myself. However, the fear is, and not only the fear, the actuality is that the Charles River aquifer and the Charles River are being overdrawn by municipal wells, whether it's Franklin, Medfield, Natick, Wellesley, Needham, and the many private wells in Dover, and the Colonial Water Company, as you know, that has acquired the Dover Water Company. It's a group thing. It's not just one person's well or one water company. So my concern is, folks, since I am a Dover resident, I can do what I can in Dover and try to impact things on a wider level. But at least in Dover, the reason I'm coming to you is many people don't realize that the selectmen are the water commissioners and that you sign a contract to provide water to the center of town and some other affiliated entities. For people who don't know, this came about because on Christmas Eve of 1985, there was a huge gasoline spill at the Mobil station in the center of town. The tanker that was delivering the gas to the station, the guy overfilled the tanks. It went on for many, many minutes, and the town of Dover's water supply on Church Street was contaminated. And I think most of you know that. It took many years for the source of that contamination to be more or less definitively established. And eventually, as you know, the town joined a class action lawsuit against Mobil and got some money for remediation, possibly of the well on Church Street, which of course has never happened. Instead, your predecessors on the Board of Selectmen back in December of 1994 signed an agreement, as you know, between the town of Dover and the Dover Water Company to provide water to the center of town, essentially. I have a copy of this agreement, courtesy of Mr. Ramsey. I also have a copy of at least an agreement between the town of Dover and the Dover Water Company from July of 2010 that went for 13 years. I don't currently have a copy of the, if there is one, a water contract between the Selectmen and the Colonial Water. So, and the reason I'm concerned is in the existing contracts that I was able to obtain, there appears to be no requirement that Colonial Water get permission from the town meeting to expand its service. And as you know, I'm very keen on town meeting approving things like this, not just you all, you three, but town meeting. So I guess my first question is there an existing contract that you all have signed with Colonial Water? My second question is, if that does exist, is there anything in it about requiring town meeting to approve expansion of the water services in town? And my third question is, regardless of all the answers to the other three, what can we do as a town to conserve water better, especially as regards to underground sprinkler irrigation systems that are not at all regulated, as far as I've been able to tell, in our town, and which are used, in my opinion, excessively. So if you could perhaps give me answers to that, or if not tonight, get them to me at your next meeting, which I will attend.
We'll try. So I received your email on all this, and I thank you for that. It was very thoughtful, and Boynton, thank you for your comments as well. We have not signed a new agreement with Colonial. It was presented to us at the last Selectmen's meeting, and it's been on hold. We have some additional information that we want to get that Mr. Ramsey is working on. We need time to read it and look at it as well. We certainly appreciate your concerns in general, and I think, quite frankly, the Springdale acquisition process has raised the issue in addition to the current expansion that's going on that we see in our streets and so forth. So clearly an issue that needs to be addressed by Dover, and we will be getting back to you on that as fast as we can. We still have some work to do on Springdale.
Well,
So,
yeah, and
you know.
I appreciate all this. I mean, what is of interest to me, and again, as you know, I've lived here an awful long time, so I can recite all this because it's part of my oral history at this point, is from '94 until last year, when the town of Dover had the existing contract with Dover Water Company and now its successor, Colonial, there was really no expansion other than 40B, which I know trumps this contract. There was no expansion of the water system for private developers who are not under 40B. And within the last year, there have been at least two, i.e. on Hartford Street, Dancer, and the Kirby property. And now I will be going, like you probably, to a planning board meeting for another property on Haven Terrace. And from my point of view, this seems to be rampant development without having a town-wide discussion about where we're going with all this. Other issues, by the way, that you might as well put into the hopper, and maybe you're talking with the Board of Health about this, is requiring Colonial Water, for instance, to have monitoring wells about near their well field to see how much they're drawing down. And if the wells are getting lower and lower and lower and lower, which I suspect they are, only because so many people in town that I know of, including myself, have had to drill wells because the existing ones no longer provide the capacity of water that we used to have. So I think this is like a huge issue for our town. And I suspect you also agree.
We do.
All right.
We're going to be looking into it. We have legal counsel looking into various, what we can legally do versus what we would philosophically like to do. And we'll be addressing this over the next couple of weeks and months, so.
Well, please,
Yeah,
you'll
I
be
appreciate-
bringing it up at your next board meeting so that people like me can...
I can't commit to the next board meeting because it depends on when we get legal counsel to respond to us. We need time to look at the current agreements. Springdale is still going to be taking up an awful lot of our time.
Well, I totally understand that, and I'm
It-
not trying to be...
It will happen probably, certainly before the first snowfall. Hopefully before the
okay.
leaves turn yellow or orange.
Thank you, Madam.
Okay.
Just to conclude, so basically, you're continuing under the terms, I assume, of the existing agreement that expired in July of no changes?
Right.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And thank you for your thoughts on this, both of you. Any more comments? Okay, in that case, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.